Welcome back to the Sonny Talk Spurs YouTube channel. It's a very special video today. We've already recorded one on Barnaby's channel. You can go and check that out after you've watched this. But we're going to talk about the season so far. We're getting the international break out of the way. We've got a massive North London derby on the horizon as well. But without further ado, how are you doing, Barnaby?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks for having me on the channel. I've been basically having people during this boring international week on my channel who are like my favorite Spurs content creators. So I had Sonny over and it's a pleasure to do a bit of quid pro quo and come on here.
Yeah, we're going to definitely collab both these videos as well, so you can go. I mean, if you don't know Barnaby, I mean, where have you been? He's one of the biggest, Tottenham creators at the moment. He's got some really good content, so go and check out his channel as well. And you know what's funny? You've said you've been getting loads of Spurs content creators on your channel. I've been getting loads of like non-Spurs creators on to give their sort of neutral opinion. So I'm glad to have a Spurs fan on now who can sort of give me the way that they see the lay of the land.
Well, I think you've had the better idea there. That just suddenly made me think, why didn't I do that? That's annoying.
Well, there you go. You can take that into next international break. But yeah, without further ado, then let's get on to the questions. And the first one for me, Barnaby, is now when it comes to Spurs this season so far, you look at it on paper, we sit fifth in the Premier League. We're undefeated in the Champions League. The FA Cup hasn't started yet, and we're out the Carabao Cup. So a lot of people are saying in the Spurs fan base that they're not too happy at the moment. But on paper, it looks quite good. So how are you making it?
Yeah, it doesn't feel like we're fifth in the league, does it? And I think for the Champions League, because of those performances at Bodo and Monaco away, where we were just, in my opinion, abject. I mean, I can basically, line up this season so far by the performances I've watched in which afterwards I've just been apoplectic with rage. And that was pretty much Bodo, Monaco away, Bournemouth at home. And then maybe surprisingly, considering we were so close to winning it, the last game against Manchester United as well. And I really like to, and I think you know this about me, Sonny, I like thinking of myself as quite a glass half full Spurs fan. But the Man United one just sent me bananas because of the team selection. And I couldn't believe, I just assumed, Udogie must have been, fatigued and nearly injured. And that's why he didn't play him, and Odebear maybe as well, because we clearly saw against Copenhagen that suddenly on the left-hand side, we had something, that kind of link up between Udogie, Odebear, Simons as well, and then Kolo Muani, who obviously, unfortunately, pretty early on got his jaw broken by Harry Maguire's head. But so I was apoplectic about that. And all the way through the game, I was just like, we don't deserve anything out of this. And then when we scored those two goals, I didn't even celebrate. And that is, I guess, telling in terms of, I just wasn't able to. I was so mad about it. And then Thomas Frank came out afterwards and was like, oh no, they weren't injured. It was just, whatever it was he said. He basically alluded to the fact that he was doing it because of the opposition. He was picking the team because he was more worried about what Diallo was going to do the other way. And that wound me up something chronic. And I like Thomas Frank. I really do. And you talked brilliantly on my video about, liking a lot of what he does kind of off the pitch in terms of communication and his media work. I agree. I think he's an elite communicator. I think he's a classy modern manager who can clearly talk to players who are, on the younger end as well as the more experienced players. But for me, the thing, and I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record because a lot of Spurs fans are saying this. For me, I've really flipped. Whereas earlier this season, I was like, I think he needs to stick with the double pivot, because every time he takes off one of Polinia or Bentancur, we lose our shape. But now I've actually flipped and I'm like, at home, I think pretty much every game at home, he needs to take the game to the opposition, because if he does that and we still lose, then at least we'll kind of lose with having the fans behind us and making up that 12th man. Whereas when he plays it really pragmatic and worries too much about what the opposition are doing and picks his team based on that, I think we pretty much usually nearly end up losing anyway. So he might as well do it with a bit more style. And I'm not saying he has to go gung-ho like full Ange ball, but just a little bit of mix and match. And I think without Udogie on the left-hand side, and you said this on my channel as well, we just lack complete balance and we lack the ability to attack down both sides, and it makes it too easy for the opposition to defend against us and to push us back into the middle, back to Vicario all the time. And it's very frustrating to watch at times.
I think frustrating is the word to describe it, because I said it on your channel as well. We have flipped on our head again, haven't we? We've gone from, as you say, gun-ho Ange ball to this new pragmatic style of football. But the thing is, I don't think, people were comparing Frank to Nuno when he came in, and Mourinho and Conte, this like boring, more defensive. But I don't remember Brentford being, as pragmatic as people were saying. They were sensible, I'd say. But, you've got to remember last year, there was moments, I think it was 3 games in a row, including against us, where they scored a goal within the first minute. And we even saw it, I think, his first game against Burnley, where Porro, literally slings a cross in straight away and we have a chance. So he has got those moments where, I think this whole he's just a boring defensive coach. I feel like has been a bit blown out proportion. But I think you're spot on with the whole, at home and away. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the stats. I think when it comes to our away form, we'd be first in the Premier League.
Yeah, with a game in hand. With a game in hand on anyone else away as well.
And then when it comes to our home form, we're 19th. And, the one that sticks out to me...
Tottenham, Sonny. This is Tottenham.
That's what it is.
This is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking about. We have to take on the Manchester United thing. The pundits will say, this is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking
lads,
about.
It's Tottenham.
Yeah.
But I think Wolves was the one that infuriated me because they have been unbelievably bad. Picked up 2 points. Manager already sacked. And they look like the strongest side.
We made them look so good. We made them look so good. I mean, actually, that's another thing that I think is worth bringing up, and it sounds a bit woo-woo, but I genuinely do think that sides love coming to this stadium. I think they get molten brown in the bathrooms.
That's what John McGinn said, didn't he?
Like they get molten brown in the bathrooms. It all smells nice. They've got lovely, lovely big changing rooms, and the fans love it. And it's all, it's like coming to Wembley. And I think we've got to find ways. I hate to say this, but them lot down the road under Arteta, he is finding ways season after season to find little marginal gains. And we laugh at him. We used to laugh at him about the, playing You'll Never Walk Alone whilst they were training or going into the dressing room for the game and talking about who invented the light bulb and stuff. But little things like taking away the tunnel so that the players in the tunnel as they're warming up can hear the fans more, and that really annoying anthem North London Forever when they're not even from North London Forever. But these are little 1 percentage points that have really helped them get to where they are, and I hate to say it, but it's true. And I think Spurs are going to need to, if they want to do what Thomas Frank keeps talking about, which is making the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium a fortress, they're going to have to make it a bit uglier and a bit less enjoyable for everybody who comes along. And until we do that, it's going to continue to be difficult. But one thing I will say is, you see, especially on X, a lot of people slagging off the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Well, what I would say is I was there for the Man City Champions League quarterfinal home game, which was the first European game we played at that stadium. And there is no problem with that atmosphere. There is no problem at all when they have something to cheer about, when the football is there, when there is something that makes Spurs fans excited to be Spurs fans. So it's got to start on the pitch. And to go back to your kind of initial question about Thomas Frank, I agree with you that I don't think Brentford were noticeably in general a pragmatic team. They scored a lot of goals. They had pace down the wide areas, certainly. But when I knew Thomas Frank was potentially going to be one of the choices to replace Ange last season, and we played Brentford, I watched really closely, and I did talk about on my videos afterwards how direct they were. And I kind of thought at the time, okay, well, maybe he sees that as the way to beat Tottenham. But he really is direct. And look, it's not that he always plays it long. Like, I think it's kind of right for him to say to the back four, if you're in trouble, if you're in danger, just hit it in the channel. I'm with him for that. I am actually with him because we've all been at the Tottenham Stadium when you can hear the intake of breath, certainly under Ange, when he was asking, Ben Davis or someone to do a Cruyff turn in his own box or whatever. So I'm with him with that, but I also just think sometimes there's too much bypassing of the midfield and it's too direct. And also, without Solanke fit, we haven't had the players, other than Kudus' ability to hold it up, we haven't had the players able to hold it up. And so it's been too easy for the opposition. So they're kind of my little worries and things that over the course of what I hope will be a legacy tenureship for Thomas Frank, I hope he lasts a good few years, that he needs to start making these little changes.
Yeah, I think I'll start with what you said on the atmosphere. I feel like we were starting to bring that with the return of the trumpet. And, it's almost like with us, it's like the first 10, 15 minutes it's there, but then the nerves sort of settle in, and then we've seen the opposition will score and then the atmosphere just gets sucked out. And you say the Manchester City game in the Champions League, I wasn't there that night and I wasn't there the night of the Bodo Glimt semi-final, but think about the atmosphere there. Yeah. They were all in lily white. It was all really good party atmosphere. That was before we even got to Bilbao in the final. So I feel like it is. It's. I called it. I said it on Inside Spurs on Talks. I said it on my own channel. It's like a vicious circle. This whole situation because it's like us as fans are paying a lot of money to be there. We want to see something to get us G'd up, but the players aren't. But then the players get infuriated that we're not G'ing them up. Like it literally will forever keep doing that. So that's the issue there.
But this comes. Sorry to interrupt something, but this is what comes. This comes into a bigger point, which is like we said when we talked on my channel. Vinay Venkatesham and the Lewis family are talking so much about how things are going to change. Well, this is the thing that I think Vinay has to understand the most, which is if you are going to continue to charge us the highest season ticket prices in the country, possibly in Europe, then there is some level of entitlement, and those fans who are paying that will feel entitled until they see on the pitch what they think they're getting in terms of value for money. And I'm afraid to say, as ugly as it sounds, they have every right to tut and to boo if it's absolute shite on the pitch, which in the 6 years since that Man City Champions League game, first European game under Pochettino, it has been shite ever since then, basically. It has. And there have been maybe only the kind of first, that last 6 months of Conte's first season when suddenly we were like, we're playing some really good stuff here. Apart from that, it's not been fun to watch at home, and mostly not away either.
Yeah, I'm literally. I've got a nickname now at Talksport. They're acting like I've never seen a win at Tottenham. Because every game I go to, I'm not a season ticket holder, Barnaby, but I'm a member. So anytime my friend could offer me a ticket, I take it up because I think, I always like could be my last game. You never know.
Maybe it'll be different this time.
Yeah, but literally, I have to go back to, and obviously this is. I think I've been to like an average of 5 to 6 games the last 3 years per year.
Yeah.
Last win I saw in general. So this year I've already been to Villa, Bournemouth, and Man United. So 2 losses and a draw.
Yep.
Last year I went to Leicester, Ipswich, Liverpool in the League Cup semi-final. So I saw a win there. And then before that, I think my last win was Nottingham Forest, where Van der Ven scored that like unbelievable goal. And that was before Nottingham Forest turned out to be a good side for one season. So to me, it's just like every time I'm offered a ticket now by my mate, I'm literally sitting there. Like even he offered it me the night before for Man U, and I thought it's an early kickoff. I'm out in London in the evening anyway. What do I do?
How much of you has wondered whether it's your fault?
That's literally what my friends keep saying. They say I'm the curse. I used to have, you know what? When I started going at Wild Lane, I went at least, and obviously I was quite young, so again wasn't going to too many games. But I had a streak of like 10 to 15 games of wins. So something must have been. So I don't know. I don't know if it's me and my old cynic age. I don't know. But you mentioned Thomas Frank there, and a lot of what people are going to do is compare him to Ange Postecoglou because that's literally what he's replaced. Ange won that trophy, so that he will have that credit in the bank. But even after seeing his cameo at Nottingham Forest, I still have had heavy doubts about him. How do you compare the two managers now, in sense of style, in sense of how they've come across, and just, as I mentioned on your channel, in the press conferences and in the interviews?
Yeah. I think that's the place for me to start. When you started asking me the question, that was initially where my head went, which is I was speaking to this brilliant guy who came on my channel. I don't think I put it out. Oh yeah, I put it out yesterday. He's a photographer called George Nelson. And I think it was him. He was talking about how Ange it turned out that Ange acted really childishly at times. And that is the main difference, which is Thomas Frank is basically an adult. It might even have been Yori, actually. Sorry if I'm miscalling who said that. But anyway, one of my guests talked about how the biggest difference is that Thomas Frank is clearly an adult. And the way that you can see that is Thomas Frank is being asked all the same questions in the press conferences after losses that Ange was, but Thomas Frank is not like bristling. He's not like going like taking it as a personal slight. Whereas Ange had this very defensive nature to him, and very unfortunately backed up with him saying, it's nothing affects me, mate. Nothing affects me. And it's like, it does. And we can literally see it affecting you every week. Now, this isn't me saying I hate Ange. I love Ange. He's a legend. He found a way. And that's something that, we don't know if Thomas Frank is going to have that realistically. That's something that not even Poch showed us that he has. So, to some degree, you can see why a lot of particularly Australian fans are like, well, we've only had one manager who's shown us how to find a way. So maybe Ange will always be, better in that level. We don't know. But what I will say is I have no doubts in my mind that in terms of Thomas Frank keeping the media on side and keeping the fans on side by not doing things like cupping his ear and childish, bristly things.
Forgot about that.
The fact by not being like that, it will allow him longer when we have bad performances and when we have bad runs. Because, listen, what happened to Ange was unbelievable in terms of the amount of defeats. And it felt maybe just like Daniel Levy was trying something different for the first time. It was like, well, I'll stick with this guy because we're still in this trophy and in this competition, and it worked. But I think in general, I think that's not something that Tottenham would let happen again. So I think Thomas Frank's kind of maturity will allow him. If let's say we lose to Paris Saint-Germain and we lose to Arsenal, and then I think we got Fulham at home next, and we don't win that, I don't think Thomas Frank would be sacked straight afterwards. But I do kind of think Ange Postecoglou at any other season other than last year probably would have been, just on the basis of his slight immature nature. In terms of the style on the field, I would probably say in general we needed to kind of shut up shop a little bit at the beginning of this season to prove we could do it. So I think he's probably made the right decision. But now I think after 11 games, probably like 14, 15 total games or whatever, he now needs to show us these layers that he speaks of more, and especially at home. And I said to you, I want him to go for it more, especially at home, and try and get the fans behind us. And if he can add these attacking layers on and get some players in that he really believes in. And I would say, I think right now Richarlison and Brennan Johnson are in real danger because those players are not performing, not really offering anything. And if he can get in players that he believes in, maybe that he's worked with before or that he thinks can really do a job in those positions where those players aren't, then I think he will add those layers on and we will improve in the second half of the season, especially if you think about how in the second half of the season, we should have some of those injured players back.
Yeah, that's why at the moment I'm like, I've clashed with a few. I've got, I won't say his name, but I've got a really close friend of mine who I go Spurs with, and me and him have basically flipped because I gave Ange until Everton away when we were 3-0 down at half time. That was when I was like,
awful,
I think I've had enough of this now. It's getting ridiculous. So last year he was defending Ange, and I was like, no, I've had enough. And now he's a bit like unsure about Frank, and I'm all for giving Frank a chance. So, and the way I see it is, for example, the Chelsea game is a perfect example. That's one of the worst games I'd say I've watched in a good few years. We lost 1-0, 0.0.5 XG. Yeah. But I think, and everyone would be like, well, Ange, how would Ange have taken this game? It's like, Ange literally was 2-0 up in this game and lost 4-2. So, or 4-3, I think it was in the end. It's so hard to even compare the two because it's like, again, we're seeing the evidence in front of us. Like, we've fixed the defense this year, but the attack is like not firing on all cylinders. I know we've got a new look attack. Last year, it was like Ange was scoring like 60 plus goals with that forward line, but we were conceding 60 plus goals from silly mistakes. So, and you can still see like these individuals have still got a ricket in them. You got to just look at the Chelsea goal, like the individual mistakes, and even the Man United stuff, like set pieces. I mean, Ange, I think in 10 games at Forest conceded 7 corners or 7 set pieces, whatever you want to call them. So there's still like, there was so much surgery to be done.
Yeah.
And everyone keeps, like, people will go to me, well, stop comparing Frank to Ange. I'm like, but you have to sometimes, it's like a case study, isn't it? You have to like compare what's come before it so you can make judgments and try and predict what could happen down the line.
Yeah, so, I think, sorry to interrupt, Sonny, but I think the closest, even though it's a different formation, I think the closest is probably kind of Conte. If you remember when Conte left, Conte was in third. He was in third in the league when he left, storming out of that Southampton press conference. But the issue with Conte was that he was saying such wild stuff in the press. He'd spiraled, he'd lost a few friends and stuff. It was a difficult time for him, I get it. But he spirals everywhere. I've even seen at Napoli, he's already started talking about potentially resigning, and he's not happy with the players they bought. And they bought loads of players for him. But that's where I think the difference is. I think we're playing kind of a similar style of football to Conte ball at the moment, which is that the home fans aren't really enjoying it, but we're picking up decent results away from home. But that's where I would say, but the media will like Frank a lot more because he's less volatile. And it's a bit of a weird contradiction because obviously the media, they love a byline. They love someone who's going to give them kind of good copy, but also with managers like Conte and Mourinho in those situations, they also love to say, they're going to get sacked, and they love to then call up people within Tottenham and say, is he in danger of getting sacked? And it rolls on from there. I think Frank will have longer because of that. But like I said, he does need to start adding these layers pretty soon. I'm really hopeful, and I fear I will be proven, I shouldn't even say it because it'll jinx it, but I would love us to have Dominic Solanke back on the field soon, because I think he could add another 10% to us. I really do.
And that is a perfect segue, mate, because you've already brought up some of our squad, and I was going to get you to do a bit of a squad audit. But before there, I've been banging this drum on my channel for the last 2 weeks during this international break. The striker situation is my issue at the moment. I've gone viral from TalkSport for saying that a shovel would be better than Richarlison up top. Kolo Muani, I think, has looked good in patches. I'll go as far and say good, but hasn't seen a goal from him yet. Dominic Solanke, you've said it there. I think he would be the perfect Frank striker, but he's made of cheese strings at the moment. And Matisse Tell, if you want to squeeze him in a striker position, has not really hit the ground running, 2 goals. I don't know if you've seen it. I did a video that's gone live today pleading maybe that Dane Scarlett should be seeing some more minutes. So what is your overall in that, after all that spiel, what do you think of this striker situation?
Well, I don't agree with you that a shovel would be better than Richarlison, but what I would say is that I don't think Richarlison is a striker. Richarlison, and I'm sure I will have said it to you before, but when we signed Richarlison, I've got family who are big Everton fans, and I've got a really good mate who's a huge Everton fan. They're like, he's not a striker. He's a left-sided forward. He does all his best work on left-sided forward. And if you think of his best work for Spurs, that outside of the boot assist against Liverpool when we won 2-1 at home.
Really
the goal against Everton from the left-hand side, putting it into the top left-hand corner from the left-hand side. He's not a striker. He can't hold it up. It's not in his nature, because his nature is so much about shithousing. So the moment he feels something in his back, he goes, he falls on the floor and it bounces off him. And you don't get free kicks for that in the Premier League, which is where when you've got Dominic Solanke up there, and actually I have been quite impressed with Kolo Muani's hold-up play as well, because he's smarter about it. He holds them off, he uses his arm better, and he creates some separation to allow him to get the ball down. And I basically think we've got to stop seeing Richarlison in that number 9 position. But look, I think he's been at the club so long now, we spent so much money for him, that I don't think anybody, including probably Thomas Frank, is thinking that he's going to be good enough as a left-sided forward either. He gets injured too much as well. So, like I said, I do think he's in big danger. I think Matisse Tell has the potential to be a great player. I really do. He's stronger than I give him credit for. For me, with him, what's clear is we have to get him into positions almost like Jermaine Defoe positions. Just outside the box, he's got an incredible shot with low backlift, hardly any backlift at all, so keepers can't predict where it's going to go. Get him into those positions and get him shooting. But in the way that Thomas Frank is playing, can he play as the 9 at the moment? No, he can't, because it's going to bounce off him. He's not able to hold it up either. Got to get Solanke back. The Dane Scarlett thing, I understand why a lot of people are saying it. I really do. Almost on a matter of a mix of, well, it can't be any worse than what we've got, especially now Kolo Muani is injured again. And, well, Harry Kane we didn't think was going to be good enough either, and then he was. But I guess you never know unless you try it. But it's quite, realistically, if Tim Sherwood had never been given the job as interim manager, I'm not sure we would have seen Harry Kane's career the way it is. Ryan Mason get the chances he got. Nabil Bentaleb, played for a couple. He played in Poch's first season as well. Bentaleb, Andros Townsend wouldn't have had the career he had. So it takes a big, brave person to really throw a young player in the Premier League at a club the size of Tottenham, and I'm not sure Thomas Frank is going to do it. But I would love to be proven wrong. And I have to say that bit of work he did against Copenhagen, Dane Scarlett, that bravery to win that penalty was really, really impressive. So who knows? But do I see it happening? I don't.
Yeah, I mean, imagine I'll be sending you a text if he's lining up in the North London derby lineup. That'd be quite funny, wouldn't it?
That's happened a few times down the years. Do you remember Jamie O'Hara got his debut in a North London derby? And I think Ryan Mason got his debut under Poch in a North London derby as well. His Premier League debut anyway. I think he'd scored, if memory serves, he scored at White Hart Lane against Forest in the League Cup just before. So it does happen that they sometimes throw them in the biggest game. The Jamie O'Hara one was mad, but he played well. That was probably Jamie O'Hara's best ever game for Spurs.
Was that against Fabregas? I swear he was.
Think so.
Yeah, and because I swear I heard him. I saw a clip of him talking about that recently, actually, and he said he was facing Fabregas, and also Danny Rose. That was his debut when he scored that one.
Rose, of course, the goal, but then he wasn't really seen again for another at least year or 18 months or so.
And then he became one of our best ever fullbacks. So it's just Tottenham, isn't it? Final couple of questions then before we get on to some North London derby predictions. moving away from the striker, the squad as a whole, you mentioned a few players there in passing. What are you making of the squad at the moment? Because again, a lot of people were like, wow, that Spurs. It goes from what literally every time I do these questions, I'm thinking there's the two extremes. You've got some people being like, wow, Spurs have the two best centre backs in the league. And then a minute later, they're like, but the squad is just terrible in general. Or, Kudos has looked good. But this, it just literally goes back like a game of ping pong, really. So the squad in general, is it a top 4 squad? Or do you think it's, not, it needs work, doesn't it? I would say.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to be super honest with myself, and it's hard to be sometimes because like I said, pretty glass half full, and I always want it to be better than it is. I think we are in a position similar to probably where Arsenal were a couple of years ago. If you remember, maybe more like 3 years ago, if you remember when Ødegaard first came to Arsenal, everybody knew from years back, Ødegaard was like a wonder kid for years, and he went to Real Madrid when he was 16 or whatever. But it took a while, even when he got to the Premier League, to get up to where Ødegaard really is now in terms of, I know he's injured, but he's like the metronome. He controls games for Arsenal on the ball. I think Spurs have players who are kind of at the level of where Ødegaard was 3-4 years ago. Lucas Bergvall, I would say he's a bit ahead of time, and maybe I'm just being a bit obvious because he's got blonde hair. But I really think Lucas Bergvall can become as good, if not better, than what Ødegaard is. But I think we have to be patient with some of those young players, and I think even the likes of Udogie, I think he has it in him to be one of the best fullbacks in the world. But is he now? No, he's not, because he doesn't get on the pitch enough for a start. Porro, I think, is a great fullback. He's a better kind of wing back than he is a defensive fullback, but his defending is improving. And I think Romero and Van der Ven, if you take them together as a two, are two of the best centre backs in the Premier League. But what I would also say is we are missing the overall depth. And I don't just mean players who you can bring in as rotation, as in, do you have two brilliant players for each position, which I'm afraid the likes of Arsenal and Man City and Liverpool now do. We don't have that, but also we're not yet, I think, especially in central midfield, we're not yet good enough on the ball. And we're missing, I think, probably at least one really brilliant magic player who is ready to play in the first team right now. And that's as a centre midfielder. And that's even before talking about what we've discussed and everyone's discussed so much in terms of the left winger. I actually think in terms of the left winger, if we were able to get a Semenyo in, then Odegaard would be the perfect rotational option for Semenyo. Learn off him, see what he does, come in as a finisher, 15 minutes to go, play some cup games, etc., etc. He's showing me enough where he can grow at the age of 21, 22 to become really good. But we don't have yet the kind of full balanced first 11 who are good enough to challenge the likes of that kind of top 3 or 4, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Barnaby, you must have been seeing my questions beforehand, because literally the next one before the North London Derby chat is transfers. You mentioned Semenyo. Yeah, I actually did a video the other day with my good friend Zach Jalab, Chelsea fan, and we the way I titled the video was building Thomas Frank's best Tottenham team. And that means not at the moment, I'm talking about next summer, the end of next summer's transfer window, what could be Tottenham's best side. And we sort of found 3 areas where we need improvement. And you mentioned one there, centre mid. You mentioned left wing there. We spoke about striker as well. The names that came to mind as well is, I guess with centre mids, you've got the likes of, these are the big names that come up every year now. Adam Wharton, Carlos Baleba, Elliot Anderson. Name we spoke about, I don't know if you know much about him, is Angelo Stiller from Stuttgart, who is...
No, I've heard of him, but I haven't watched him much. Yeah,
I mean, he's sort of... the thing is, we're quite stacked in midfield, but we haven't got that sort of punchy, direct passer. Our best passer in the team, I don't know if you agree with me, is probably Romero from centre-back, who can actually break lines. Stiller is that sort of midfielder. He's been linked with Real Madrid. He's German. They've called him the next Tony Kroos, as pundits and journalists always do. He's 24. I feel like, this is a player where, if you're not going to get those top tier, especially where a lot of those names I whittled off are English, so they're obviously going to have a bit of English tax on them. Maybe Stiller's the next best option. Left wing, you've got Semenyo, you've got Iliam and Jai at Everton, who'll probably be looking for a big move next year. And then striker's another one. And I want to get your thoughts on all these sort of names. Ivan Toney is one that keeps coming up as a potential loan deal. A bit more mature, but, could offer that Dominic Solanke role. And then the one we all dream of, Harry Kane. Could he ever come back? I don't know what you think about, especially the striker and the centre mid. Is you've said about Semenyo, but is there any other names that pop up or crop up and you think, yeah, they'll do a job at least?
I think the problem that Spurs have is that we are fishing in the waters of the leftovers after the clubs above us have done their work. So Chelsea have basically taken on the same transfer strategy as Spurs have had in the last few years, except have just thrown all their money at it. So I don't doubt for a second that if Chelsea hadn't been bought by Clearlake and Todd Bowley, Spurs would have a fair few players that are at Chelsea at the moment. I really think so, because I think Tottenham kind of tried to pivot back to what had been most successful for them previously, which is kind of buying young, them kind of improving at the club, and then having a big sell-on fee. You mentioned Njai. I really like him, the Everton player, but I just think Everton have got new owners now, and I don't see why they're going to have to sell him. I think it's more likely they would have to sell Jared Branthwaite, because he would work as pure profit if they've got FFP issues again. And I don't think it's going to be easy for Tottenham to cherry pick players off the likes of Everton even. I really don't. I hope I'm wrong, because I do really like him. Although what I would say is Thomas Frank has talked about physicality, and the Premier League is getting more and more physical. And that is another reason why I think Semenyo is absolutely should be the number one name on the list, because he's such a big boy as well. He's such a physical player, and people bounce off him. And can you just imagine? And this is why it won't happen, because it would just be so perfect to have two guys either side of a Solanke who are quick, but also you can't get the ball off them. You bounce off them. And the last player we had like that, really in the spine of the team anyway, was Moussa Dembele, and I think we're always trying to recreate that. I think Adam Wharton I really like, because I think he can do a similar role for us that Michael Carrick did back in the day. It's like that metronomic quarterback, always wants to get the ball. And imagine how much improved Christian Romero's passing could be still if he had an option to give it to Adam Wharton, maybe get it back off him, and then opposition players, when pressing us, they wouldn't just be pressing Romero so that he gets rid of the ball to somebody who's less comfortable on it, like Kevin Danso as an example, because he would always have an option of Adam Wharton, and then they'd have to press him, and then Romero would be free and he could play line-breaking balls from there. So I like all of those players, but my instinct is they will go to clubs who are willing to pay more wages than us, and we'll be fishing elsewhere. And that's why I fear, to go back to kind of an earlier point, I fear that this transfer window, do I feel confident we're going to get signings of that level, even though, the club are trying to show or tell us that things are going to be different? I don't. And I think the only way we can is if, like I said, maybe it was on my channel, but I said, I think Tottenham with a Semenyo, they have to go in early and they have to go in big, like other clubs have done. Like when Liverpool went and got Virgil van Dijk, they went probably 25 million above the market rate because they had to go and get him. And even that was difficult. When they got Alisson, they had to go above the market rate. But you have to do that when you're a smaller, dare I say it, smaller club or a less successful club. You have to do that. And then, as you said as well, they have to show the money when it comes to the wages. And you have to go to Semenyo and say, we'll give you 200 grand a week. You'll be our joint highest earner with Christian Romero. And you will be in the team every week. You can take our free kicks. You can do whatever you want. But I fear that won't happen. And that's why I fear that come February, there'll be a malaise in the Spurs fan base again of people just being like, well, this is still ENIC. This is still ENIC. No matter what you say, it may be Joe Lewis's kids, but it's still the Lewis family, whichever way you look at it. And I'm saying this because I hope to be proven so wrong.
I mean, that's I'll give you a round of applause after that. That was just, absolutely spot on. It's what I said on your channel. It's just the wages. We need to, if we've washed our hands of Daniel Levy, we need to go into they keep saying new era. They keep, I can't believe
they have to prove it. They have to prove it.
It's, otherwise, we got, I said it on your channel, we got to put our money where our mouth is. We've got to really, if we want to be at the big table, if we, like the Super League the other year, if we think we should be among the elite, you've got to, you got to be there. You got to do what you can to close the gap.
Yeah. Do you know what I would do if I were in any way involved in that boardroom? What I would do is I would do like a data deep dive in terms of money Spurs have spent on players because they were unwilling to go the extra mile on the players that they wanted first. Add all of that up and say, and it'd probably come to like, actually Spurs have spent probably like 400 million pounds on players who didn't work out because we were unwilling to spend the same money on what would have probably been half as many players in terms of numbers, but who would have dragged us by the scruff of the neck to more titles. And that's, if I was someone involved in the club, I would do that, and I'd take it to Vinay Venkatesham and say, this is where we need to be different. We need to do something different in the first part that seems in the short term like scary, but actually in the long term will probably save us a lot of money and bring more time. Because also, don't forget, every Champions League win is £1 million. Every Champions League win is £1 million. So, that can be paid back pretty quickly, £10 million here over a couple of seasons. If you get 5 wins each season in the Champions League that maybe you wouldn't have got if you're getting Timo Werner in on loan rather than spending £20 million more on a player.
Yeah, I just think like when you look at Spurs' transfers as well, you just got to think the times we do put the cash down, whether it's Soldado and Ndombele, it's just never, I don't know, it's never that much conviction in those deals. It's always like, we eventually agreed to deal with Leon or something like that. Yeah. And then the only players that come good are the ones where we underpay for them. They're unknown entities, even like Mickey van der Ven. No one was talking about Mickey van der Ven, before he came to us, or even, Christian Eriksen. There was always, or like a player that was like a Van der Vaart, where everyone was like, "Oh, he is from Real Madrid, but he hasn't really hit the level." And then he came in and he did. It's so
Eriksen is such a great example because people, I feel like people have slightly forgotten how huge and important Eriksen was for us. And I'd seen Eriksen play for Denmark against England when he was about 17 or 18, and he ran the game. And I remember thinking, he is so good that Spurs will never get him. And when we got him, people kind of really, really forget how vital he was. And we need to be trying to find those. But the problem is, like, to go back to the beginning of what I was saying, Chelsea are picking up those players. Chelsea are picking up all of those fucking players. And it's a wind up. But there have to be some left over. There have to be. And that's where Langer has to be brilliant.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do you know what? The only transfer I've said out loud where I was like, I really hope we got him, was Toby Alderweireld. When he had his loan spell at Southampton, I watched him and I thought, this guy's fantastic. He's got to be playing at a higher level than Southampton. I mean, that Southampton team was fun anyway. But I was like, but have we got enough about us to go to Atletico Madrid and go, I mean, we had a formidable defence themselves and go, right, we'll have him. And we did. And I was like, oh my God, I've manifested that and it's happened.
No, I did exactly the same with Luka Modric. Luka Modric had been the player you buy on Championship Manager / Football Manager for years. And I was bizarrely in New York, and it was, I don't know if you've ever got to watch like Spurs play when you're in New York, because you get up at like 5 a.m. and it's so brilliant to be drinking at like 5 a.m. But I was having a beer at like 5 a.m, and suddenly they cut at White Hart Lane to the crowd. I think Spurs were playing Newcastle, and Luka Modric is sitting in the crowd, and they're like, yeah, he signed for Spurs. And I was fucking dancing around the room. The only other time I've danced around the room like that was when we signed Gareth Bale as well. When we signed best in class young players, and that's something that Tottenham have to get back to doing. And we missed out on Adam Wharton because we bottled it, and we I think they were in fear over what happened with Jack Clarke. But you've got to take those risks. You've got to take those risks, because one Adam Wharton would have more than made up for the error of Jack Clarke. And we've got to, we missed out on Eze when he was at Reading. Like all these players who've been on our list, and now, you try and buy them down the line for £30 million more. It's mental.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I mean, I'd like to think after the summer as well, the fact that we went out, we got Kudus, even Xavi Simons. I mean, was it a hijack in the end? It's hard to know, but I still think that was a bit of a statement, as if to say, like, and I know Chelsea fans, they play it down now, but they really wanted it. And they went for Garnacho instead. I know Garnacho looks okay, actually, surprisingly. So. Yeah,
but Simons will be good. Don't you worry about it. He will be good, but it might not be. He might not be at his best this season. But again, the thing that I keep saying is this season reminds me so much of Pochettino's first season. Very up and down. It not quite working out rhythmically, but then can they find a click? Can they find the moment? And when they do, I think Simons can be our Eriksen. I do. Eriksen, I have to say, Simons is way more physical than Eriksen ever was. Eriksen jumped out of every 50-50 he was ever in, and I didn't care about it because he's such a maestro.
I'm glad he said that, because I used to remember thinking, like, I was going, what are you doing? Like, why are you not getting involved? But yeah, I think there was a stat in one of the losses, like Xavi Simons had been the most, like, won his most duels or something. I was like, I don't remember that.
What I would also say is that Eriksen very rarely got injured as well, so it was pretty smart of him in some way. But Simons will come, and anybody who's writing off Xavi Simons is making a mistake. I'm sure of that. But we need some help in January. It needs to be players that Thomas Frank wants, and I think, like we said, they need to make a statement. I think they should make a statement before then if they can. But I don't know. I guess I don't know. Who knows what will happen?
Yeah, well, we'll leave the speculation and see what the season can put in front of us. But to round off then, Barnaby,
Mm,
the big one this weekend, the North London derby, the Woolwich
yeah.
Arsenal,
Mm,
away at the Emirates.
mm.
Where do I begin? Well, I'll start with a bit of context. We're recording this Tuesday, 18th of November evening. This will probably go out Thursday. And at the moment, it looks like Victor Gokres might be injured for Arsenal. It looks like Gabriel might be injured. Calafiori might be okay. Papa Matasar, we've not heard any injury news yet about him. He limped off in the same game as Gabriel, so we couldn't even have that moment of going, yeah, oh, here we go.
Yeah,
No, he's
yeah.
injured as well. And we've still got a few players to come back. Arsenal, Sunderland, I mentioned on your video, maybe the blueprint to get points off them. But overarching question, how do you see it going?
Well, he has to play Udogie. I've noticed that Udogie has been out in Dubai with a Spurs fitness coach over the international break, so that can only be good news. He has to play Udogie. I think he has to play Odebear on the left. And I think he has to play Polinia and Bentancur in the middle with Simons. And the number 9 is a difficulty. I guess it'll probably have to be Richarlison. Still no news on how long Kolo Muani is going to be out, but probably at least 4 weeks, I would have thought, with that broken jaw. I just think we're probably going to lose. But what I would say is if we can not concede a set piece against them, then, because not just because they're so good at set pieces, but I think pretty much every game we've played against them in the last few years, we've conceded from corners, from set pieces, a few own goals in there as well. Vicario flapping, Ben White, pouring at his glove, all that kind of embarrassment. If we can not concede from a set piece and not concede in the first 15 minutes, can we make it hard for them? Yes, I think we can. Do I think we'll get chances against them? Yes, I do. Maybe mainly from set pieces, ironically, but if we can do that, I mean, also I guess there's a possibility that Thomas Frank may try one of his special, projects like he did against Paris Saint-Germain. That'd be interesting. Will he maybe try 3 at the back? I kind of hope not. I don't think that's the right thing to do necessarily, although it would be an opportunity to get Danso on, which would help us from defensive set pieces and obviously bring his mad long throw into play. I think we'll probably lose, but the thing that is most important to me, do you remember the one Nuno game at the Emirates where we lost to them and basically we had no midfield the entire game? Yes. I remember exactly where I was watching that game, and it was probably up there with the Chelsea game of this season as one of the most depressing performances ever. I just don't want it to be like that. I want us to give them a game, make it hard for them. They are properly in it for the title this year. In fact, I think they're massive favourites for the title. So there'll be a bit of pressure there that hasn't been there as much in the last few seasons. And it's not just about beating Spurs. They need to not drop any points. So can we play on that? Can we make it hard for them, not concede in the first 15 minutes, dampen the crowd atmosphere a little bit, maybe get them a bit agitated, and then grow into the game somehow and nick something, maybe. But if I were a betting man, which I'm not really much anymore, I would heavily be putting money on Arsenal, sadly.
And do you know what? Because I answered this question recently, so I want to know your answer before I get a score prediction. If they do win it, how will that make you feel? Will you care?
If Arsenal win it?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll care massively, but I mean, I'm expecting it. So I guess I'm already doing the internal work on it already in my head.
Yeah, because my thought process was this time last year, when, in the last couple of years, I was like, they can't win it. They can't win it. Honestly, we'll never hear the end of it. But now we've won something. I feel like, and because it's a European trophy as well, which they've never touched, we could at least, be like, well, we've got a whole year of Warra trophies. That is what I'm saying. So if they won it this year, I'd be like, well, you should have won it last year and the year before and the year before.
Oh, so you mean the league? I see. Sorry, I thought you meant this fixture.
No.
Sorry. In terms of the league, yes, it'll be horrible, Sonny. Listen. You've already seen. You live in London, don't you? You've already
just outside, yeah.
Just outside. Well, if you live in London, and I'm sure it's to some degree similar all around the country, they're all coming out of the woodwork, mate. They're all coming out of the woodwork. The Arsenal shirts, they're all over the place. And
there's been an epidemic of Arsenal shirts. That's
It'll be 100 times worse. So yeah, I mean, similar to, I guess, this fixture, I'm already doing the internal mental work on them winning a trophy. Yes, it is important that we won a trophy too. I completely get that. But how joyous would it be if they don't do it this year? Because honestly, it's all set up for them this year. It's all set up for them this year. And if they find a way to blow it this time, it will be I'm I'm very, very fearful, I have to say. I think Arteta is as annoying and boring as he is. I think he has just kind of, like I said earlier, added on these marginal gains, and now they're finding ways to win pretty much no matter what happens. And to be honest, to draw 2 all the way at Sunderland, it's not a bad result. It's a difficult place to go.
Yeah, and I will say, just as a disclaimer, I do care about the game on Sunday, just because I will.
Yeah, you get that clipped up.
Yeah, do you know what's really funny? Actually, I was meant to be doing a live stream on Sunday with TalkSport at the Hippodrome Casino. I think it was me. It was meant to be me, Darren Bent, David Bentley.
Must be for Paddy Power then, down in their
yes
place. I've been there. It's really cool down there.
Luckily, it's been cancelled because when I heard about it, I was like, oh, actually, I'm not too bad because at least I could just hide and shut the curtains.
Yeah,
and
I went and watched England down there on my own with a few beers. It's like the room is 99% plasma. It's a really cool place to go. Actually,
that was the selling point. But luckily, I'm luckily I can watch it in my own comfort. Is what I'll say to that. And a score prediction, Barnaby. I'm going to go with 0-0. I'll take it 0-0.
Yeah, you're a better man than me. Listen, sometimes I predict that we're going to lose and we go on to win. So I'm going to have to say I think it'll probably be 3-1 to Arsenal. But I hope I'm wrong. I've been proven many times to not know anything about ball. So I hope this is one of those times.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. And just to say, so this video is going to go out on Thursday. Barnaby and myself recorded one on his channel, but without further ado, Barnaby, do you want to plug your channels? We'll collab on these videos anyway, so people can jump between them.
We'll be using the new YouTube collab feature, which is pretty cool, despite the fact I don't fully understand it. But there you go. That's because I'm old. Just come and subscribe to my channel at Barnaby Slater _ for daily Tottenham news and more Tottenham transfer rumours as we get closer to that window opening. And let's face it, Sonny, people on YouTube only want to hear about transfer rumours. That's all they care about.
Yes, I mean, I've been starting to peddle some of them this week. So, thanks once again to Barnaby. I was going to say, I want to say this on camera. I was on YouTube the other day, and sometimes YouTube will throw some old videos up, like that you watched like 10 years ago. I saw the one on Spurs North London's YouTube channel, and I was like, I literally had a flashback. It was one of you and Smithy, and I was like, oh my God, that was literally, because obviously I knew you from then, and I was like, it's come full circle because it's so weird. Like when we were sorting this video out, it's been about a week in the making. We've been trying to get this video. I just thought I've got to mention that to you because I just remember watching you back in the day, and now we're on the video together. It's come full circle, isn't it?
No, brilliant. And that just made me think. I actually have you listened to this podcast, Tottenham Hotspur?
No, I haven't actually. No.
So there's a brilliant new podcast called Tottenham Hotspur, one of the great names of our times, which is a podcast about Tottenham podcasts. And this guy does it. He's really brilliant at it. And he basically, in each episode, he will talk about a different type of Spurs podcast. So he's had Flav on there, and I went on there recently, and we talked a lot about those kind of original Spurred On days from 10 years ago. So check that out as well, because it's a really good new podcast called Tottenham Hotspur. And if you want to listen to my episode, you'll find out all about how the original Spurred On came about and all of that kind of business.
Yeah, that sounds like a good podcast. I'll check that out because I'd be keen to jump on a podcast like that and just talk about. Because do you know what? I think at the moment we've got such a good Spurs creator base. I think we've got loads of good people doing their thing at the moment. But yeah, that's all what we've got time for today. Thanks again to Barnaby. He'll be collabed and linked down below. But until next time, I guess the video after this is going to be a North London derby reaction. So wish us all luck. But until then, up the Spurs. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.